All right, so today, welcome to our career webinar. I am Cindy Cornell, the career coach for working professionals at the Yale School of Management, and I am absolutely delighted to have a special guest today. We're talking about, the topic today is not old school, leveraging library resources in your job search. And I also just want to mention that these library resources can be incredibly useful for those people who are looking to continue to grow in their own roles or in their current industries as well. Erin Wakowicz is our librarian today. She's got a master's in library science. She's the program director of the Marks Library, and she's been with Yale since 2014 and in the current role since 2019. And if you haven't been to the Marks Library, it's located in Klein Tower, so not far from SOM. And worth a visit the next time you're in the area and people are allowed to congregate. Erin is known for, and we'll get into the content in just a second, for her strong customer focus and her passion for connecting people with information through outreach, instruction, and technology. And I'm really excited for her to be sharing these ideas with us today. And in preparation for our conversation today, Erin, you and I talked about the way people come to coaching and some of the questions they have as they are looking to either accelerate in their careers in their own companies or in terms of job search. And people are sometimes not sure what they want to do and not sure where they want to do it. So we talked about the fact that people might be focused on location, or they might be focused more on industry, or they might be focused more on very specific companies and doing some in-depth research there. And you've got some really wonderful resources that you want to share that are available to our alumni that many people don't know about or take advantage of. So I'm going to stop talking now and hand it over to you to offer whatever introduction that you'd like to offer to yourself, and then just for us to dive into the content today. And thank you so much again for being here.
Cindy, thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and thank you to the group that has signed on for spending your lunch hour with me today. Again, as Cindy has pointed out, I've been working with students from the School of Management since 2014, so it's possible that if you've attended any of the programming that was a collaboration between the library and the CDO during your time at SOM, you may have already heard from me before, and we may have worked together in the past. But again, I'm also happy to provide support in tandem with Cindy and the CDO to SOM alumni. And so we're going to just jump in today and take a look at a couple of those tools that Cindy had mentioned. I will share my screen. Excellent. And so what you are all seeing right now is the alumni portal for students, or for alumni from the School of Management. And we are up here on this career tab. I'm assuming some of you know where this is because you are all here at this event, and this is where you can find a lot of Cindy's recorded webinars from previous sessions. So we're going to go ahead and actually take a look at 3 resources that are actually licensed in subscriptions from the library that are available to all of you as alumni. And the first one we're going to take a look at is a platform called Going Global. And so some of you might know of this resource. It's considered sort of like the resource for aspiring expats or for international job seekers looking for employment in the US, but I think that that doesn't necessarily fully describe some of the great features. So we're going to take a look at this now. Where you will find this on the portal that we're looking at is if you go here and down to international resources, and actually, Cindy, we can add a link to this on the regular resources too, but you'll see here's the link for Going Global, and we are going to click on this USA/Canada City Career Guide. So this is one of a resource that we have that is fantastic for the job seeking, geographic focused job seeker. So what you'll see when you log into this platform is a landing page that looks a little bit like this. What we want to do is click in here to this career guides page, and again, pick this US City Career Guides. And what we'll see is a list of possible cities that Going Global has created handouts for, or profiles for. And so what we can do is pick one. I'm going to take a look at Chicago. for example, and this is going to be a really easy place to find information that you could probably find from disparate locations, but all in one single landing page. So for example, one feature that might be helpful for many of you in this space is looking for finding executive recruiters and search firms in a specific city. In this case, we're looking at Chicago. So we're going to go ahead and actually come down here under finding a job and click on these little plus signs. You'll see that this is going to expand more options. And right from within here, we're going to have a landing page that's an overview of a job search for Chicago, but executive recruiters and search firms is going to be just that. This is a list that was curated by editors at Going Global that features search firms that are available or focused in and serve the Chicago area. So one thing I want to mention too about that's nice about all of the content we're going to look at in Going Global is that everything here is monitored continually. Updates are always applied when market conditions change or if there's like a significant event. As you can see, there's lots of with every website right now, mention of COVID and what some of those impacts might be. But again, I think this is a testament to how frequently the team at Going Global looks at some of these lists. So again, just one really nice, easy feature for you to take a look at is going to be a list of executive recruiters and search firms. Something else that is also potentially of interest in this view, if we go back, we can actually, under hiring opportunities, take a look at two options here. So there's top companies. This is going to be a list of the largest firms in Chicago. So this could either be by employee count or by annual sales. So if you are looking to sort of see who some of the biggest hiring potential firms are in a specific geographic area, this is a really easy way to take a look at that list. Another thing that's also helpful for people that are focused on a new city or a potentially new city would be opportunities for networking. So again, we can always use our back browser or we can use the sub navigation up here on the top of the page. You'll see that there are some other tabs of information, but under professional and personal networking, we have a couple of lists. You'll see there are some nice tips here for networking in a specific geographic area, but what's also great is they're actually going to list out, scroll back up, they're actually going to list out professional associations sort of by function or industry within this market, and in this case, again, being Chicago. So again, I'm just looking at the list of those professional associations in Chicago for business management and marketing, and you'll see a lot of usual suspects here, but it's nice to have them sort of all in one place, and so you can sort of find your flock in a new area, as it were. And again, this is a way where you can sort of try to expand a local network. Haven't looked into any of these. Again, it's just a nice place to find all of this information that is admittedly freely available, but it's all in one place. Now, as you can see, we're just looking at these career guides and there are these sub-navigation tabs here. So we can do things like look at who some of the largest H-1B visa sponsors in Chicago would be, some tips for, interviewing and job searches in Chicago. And then last but not least, there's a living there tab, which is also, again, helpful. You'll find information about actually living in the city, navigating in the city, cost of living information, what their transportation is like. Again, it's just nice to have all of this in one place if you're looking at making a big move. Now, also worth mentioning, we're just looking at the US city career guides. These exist for international cities as well. So if you're really thinking about taking your career or making an even larger move, you'll find a similar level of coverage following that same structure for all of the cities listed here on this city guide page. And then there's also a country career guide page as well. So very quickly, that was Going Global. And again, I think it's especially helpful for the job seeker or potential job seeker that is geographic or location focused. Also worth mentioning, if you access the page and you're kind of not quite sure how to navigate or what we looked at, I do have a handout that will be shared after the session. We'll make sure that you get this via email. And there's also some training opportunities available right within the page. If you click on training, there are videos and there are actually user training guides that you can actually click into. So anything that I've covered, you can watch someone else from the actual vendor go through and cover how to navigate the platform. So that's all there, and it should make it pretty easy for you. So Cindy, do you recommend me checking in for questions as we go through from resource to resource, or maybe just checking in at the end?
We can do a quick, I see I have one right now.
Okay.
But let me actually add to what you've just shared. If you are location specific, please don't forget to check in with your alumni chapter in that location. You don't have to be there yet. I know of a couple of instances where I've encouraged people to do that, and they've found some really wonderful connections, just, you know, kind of from an SOM colleague that they hadn't met yet. So that's one. A question that came up today so far is, this is great, what if you want to work remotely? And I'll answer that one just really quickly. Remote work status is changing for many companies. So my suggestion to at the top is just to have a peek at Google and type in the company you're interested in and remote work policies and see what they're doing there. And then, you know, you can also, LinkedIn also has a new function that specifically identifies remote work opportunities. So definitely check that out also. And that might alert you to companies that are interested in or offering remote work. And then you can come back over to what Erin is going to share you a little bit more in terms of other company research from those organizations. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that question, Erin?
Excuse me. Yeah, I believe that there is actually also some advice on those city pages too that will list about seeking remote opportunities. And so I would take that and apply that to what Cindy guides you with and any advice that she may have for that as well.
Okay.
I think there's another question about logging in using an email address. So, and there was another something else in the chat someplace that I just saw about finding these resources again. So again, right now you should be seeing my screen, which is going to be the alumni portal, and we just went into career and then career resources. And so the Going Global resource was actually listed under international resources under these sub navigations here. So you'll see there's Going Global and there's the country career guide, which will let you look at country guides, or the USA Canada city career guide. They're both the same site. They're just sort of like different doors into the same house or building, but it will all take you to the same platform. And again, we'll be sharing a handout that will actually have sort of paths for how to access some of these resources and direct links and things too.
Awesome. I think we're caught up with questions. So.
Oh, and the email address, you don't need to log in with a Yale email address. There's a special link in here that will just behind the authentication that you log into the alumni portal for, that will just provide you with access magically. And if that doesn't work, just let us know. You can contact Cindy or myself, and I'm gonna make sure that my email address that you can reach me at for help goes into the chat. I meant to share this earlier.
Yep. So that's a question. So you, in order to connect with you, you want people simply to email you at this address, and that's the best way to connect?
Yes, and I just shared it with the group. Yes. So what this is it's the business reference address that we have. So we have multiple people checking this address, and you will get a better answer quicker, and your questions will sort of get triaged to the top instead of getting buried in my personal email, which is full of committee work and other programmatic academic responsibility things. So we like to keep the researcher support questions separate so they rise to the top.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we've got that. So let's press on to our next session, which is looking at more building a target list of companies, or doing some research around an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have actually clicked from that international section or career support to general career support. The next resource we're going to actually take a look at, and you'll find it down here under this data sources section. We are actually going to take a look at something called Mergent Intellect. So you'll see the two Mergent products here. And what you'll also, I want to make sure that you are aware of is that these links are here. The username and password that you'll need to access this platform, and I believe it's actually the username is the same, the password is different from platform to platform. So there is Mergent Intellect and Mergent Online, and we're going to take a look at both, and we're going to talk a little bit about what some of the use cases might be and why you would choose to use one over the other, because the names, sound very similar. So we are going to actually take a look at Mergent Intellect first. So it's primarily a directory of business information that comes from a variety of sources, including Dun & Bradstreet, and it allows you to do things like basic searches or advanced searches, making it a fantastic tool for you to be able to sort of build a list of companies if you're interested in a specific industry or in a specific area. And then the other thing we're going to take a look at are their first research industry reports, which are also incredibly helpful. So in this case, we're just going to do a basic search for a company that I'm sure everyone is familiar with, so you are able to get a sense of what a company profile will look like in here and the kinds of information that are collected. And we're going to look at Amazon, and it is the database, like many of the other library resources, is incredibly polite and trying to be helpful and making suggestions of what it thinks you're looking for. And so we are actually going to look at this because it's showing me that this is the headquarter location. So we're going to go ahead and pick Amazon. And this is what a basic company profile is going to look like in Mergent Intellect. You're going to find the ticker, some geographic location information, and then you're going to find these tabs of information. So it's tab navigation across the top of the page here with sub tabs. So you're going to see right on this landing page some basic details, the business description. Oftentimes this comes directly from the 10K or SEC filing. You're going to find some news information, some other things just about their location, their address, if they're a manufacturer. So again, because the information from this database comes from Dun & Bradstreet, and they tend to be a more sales focused, we'll say, provider of information, that is why a lot of what we're seeing is listed here. So number of employees, year of founding. We're going to see some industry codes. We'll talk about these in a second. Some lat long, and then they even list out some current jobs that are sourced from Indeed. If we scroll back up to the top of the page, some of the other information you'll find here, nice detailed company histories. So if you're really trying to think about how a company got to where they are, if you're thinking about a company's sort of overall strategy and mergers and acquisitions, this will provide sort of a nice timeline of major events that a company may have had in their history. So, and again, this is all something you can actually download these or print these by just following some of these icons here. Surrounding companies, again, this would be more geographic focused, like if you were looking for businesses that are physically near the headquarters from where Amazon is located. We also have a competitor list, so who D&B is identifying as potential competitors. Amazon's weird in that like everyone's their competitor because they kind of do everything. So if this looks strange, it's because Amazon's sort of an anomaly in this case. Also up at the top of the page, some other things I wanted to point out, this is in the company details. You'll also find some basic financial information about a company listed here, some industry details. And again, this is going to give you a wider variety of some of the NAICS codes or industry codes that they participate in. So again, electronic shopping, obviously their, e-commerce platform, but also this is looking at, their acquisition of Whole Foods. So these are going to be sort of the primary and secondary NAICS code. This doesn't mean that this is every line of business that Amazon operates in, but this is just two of them. We have a nice overview of some executive details. So you're going to see things like and it's defaulting to their list of officers. So again, this is going to be your C-suite. You can find bios and other information on their board of directors. And they also actually have a nice way for you to actually search through people. So again, this is all coming from D&B. So if you've used previous iterations of some of the Dun & Bradstreet or D&B Hoover's databases while you were either at Yale or attending another school, this is going to look a little familiar, where you'll actually be able to kind of go through and maybe like look at people by job function or search by title. So again, this is a good way to kind of find potential networking opportunities and other things that are listed in here. And again, you can sort this a number of different ways: by name, by job function hierarchy. And again, it's all exportable. The last thing is the family tree. So in this case, this is going to be sort of that overall company hierarchy of the company itself, and then all of their branch locations or other single location acquisitions. So if we click on this, it's going to expand this, and this is going to show us every single warehouse that they have, some other lines of business. You can export this if you were interested in kind of like refining this by specific location, we could do that. There's a lot of just interesting info in here. And again, this is just a lot of the general warehouse. You'll see also you can limit this to just like the headquarter or just branch locations, or anything that would be just sort of like a single acquisition. So like if we do that, you're going to see things like Twitch, which is a subsidiary, but it doesn't really have anything else kind of going on. And there's these icons here that will list that out. So this is just sort of a really interesting way to kind of look at the overall large footprint of a large company like Amazon. And again, you can build different reports and export the trees. So if that's of use for your research, that could be really helpful as well. So this was just, again, I used Amazon because we all know what they do and what they are. Another example we can actually take a look at here will be something like Pfizer, which they have a little bit more of a focus, sort of like we know what they do. They're not kind of everything the way Amazon might be. They're not a grocery store and an e-commerce platform. So we are actually going to look at that profile, and it's going to take a second to load. And so right now, again, we'll go back to that company details page. And one thing I wanted to point out was, say you were interested in working at Pfizer, or maybe you're currently working at Pfizer, and you're kind of curious about what other companies in a geographic area might be of interest, or you wanted to stay in pharmaceuticals. So this is where I would go through here and look at this key information section. And if we look at the primary NAICS code, you can use the SIC code also. These are both industry categories. I tend to lean towards the NAICS codes in most of the Mergent platforms, simply because they tend to be a little bit more focused. Some of these are like weirdly specific with the SIC code. So we're going to use the NAICS code, and just make note of this number, this 325.412, because what we're going to do is I'm going to go back up to the top of the page, and we're going to actually take a look at the advanced search function. Now, this is the tool you would use, or the functionality you would use if you wanted to search. Actually, I have a search already in here loaded, so I'm going to clear that. This would be what you would want to use if you wanted to create a search using some very specific criteria. So like industry. In this case, let's say we want to look at location. So say you're interested in staying in potentially Connecticut. We'll look at New Jersey, and we'll just make this a full tri-state search. And we're going to add this criteria. So what this did is it limited the numbers of companies that are found in this database in those 3 states. One thing worth mentioning in here too is it's not just large companies. You're going to find a lot of small businesses as well, which is where you'll see this in the search results that we'll get momentarily. Now, let's say you did want to stay in the pharmaceutical industry. So we'll click on this industry tab here. And I had mentioned using the NAICS code. Again, there's the SIC code, so the standard industry classification. This is primarily used by the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States. So industries for like the economic census, that's that category. NAICS is the North American Industry Classification System. This is more commonly used in some other, it's used in the economic census, and it's also used in Canada and Mexico. So it's sort of a product of NAFTA. But again, I think it's a little bit more, I have found it to be a little bit more on point in trying to find similar companies. And then the HIC, it's the proprietary Hoover's industry classification. You can choose whichever one you want. I'm going to choose NAICS. And I am actually going to, we can either look for that code that we specifically were, we had mentioned before for pharmaceutical preparation, or you can do a keyword search. So we could say pharmaceutical and medicine manufacturing. So let's go ahead and add this. So now we've added this to our search, where we've selected this. We want to add this to the search. And what we have now, so we went from like several thousand companies now down to about just under 3,000. Let's see what this looks like right now. So what we can do is scroll down here. We've clicked search. We'll click search, and now we'll see our results list. And so by default, it is giving us the list in order of sales. We can pick any of these criteria. So if we wanted to sort this by state, if we wanted to sort this by location type, we could sort this in a couple different ways. We have some visualizations here. So there's a large portion of these are going to be a lot smaller. Yeah, like almost 2,000 of these are going to have revenues of less than $1 million, at least according to the results that are presented here. There's a couple of different ways that you could kind of go through and take a look at these results. But again, this is going to give us a list of profiles very similar to the two that we looked at for both Amazon and Pfizer, of all companies that sort of meet the criteria that we looked for. You're going to find that information about like the location type. So is it a headquarter, a branch, or a single location? And we can sort of expand the number of results we see on a page. There's all sorts of great things we can kind of do here. We can look by number of employees to see who might be the largest. So a lot of these are like less than 4. So these could be really small, or they're just subsidiaries that aren't reporting all of their employees. Again, employee count has kind of gotten strange now, sort of in this era of remote working and things. So it's maybe not necessarily always the best criteria to limit by, but ownership type, we can actually divvy this up by specific locations. So a lot of these are just single location firms. If we just wanted headquarters, you know, so those that are corporate headquarters, we can select that, and that's going to give us those results on our list. So say I wanted to make this list a little bit more actionable, I can actually go through and select some of these results, and we can export these. So then this will be in an Excel sheet that you can use to sort of kind of keep track of your search, take some notes, look for jobs, or you know, job opportunities, find contacts. There's a number of ways that this could be helpful for you. So I think I'm going to check in here and see if anybody has any questions at this point on the advanced search function. So again, you can kind of get very custom here. Do you have anything you want to add, Cindy?
I'm not seeing any questions right now. And I just want to add that most people that are engaged in a job search typically look at the job description and they apply. And I am always encouraging people to demonstrate their interest and expertise by doing some deeper research. These are super tools to help you get in there and with, you know, kind of 1 or 2 clicks, get to a level of detail that most other candidates aren't going to have considered. And the other thing I'd say is, you know, oftentimes people might have questions about, you know, salary data or different, you know, kind of competitive marketplace issues, and they may not be able to, for example, for some of these really small locations, small firms, get that detail. If you can actually speak to what you understand about what's happening elsewhere in the competitive industry set, geographically speaking, or more globally, again, you're going to set yourself apart as being somebody who's going to be able to create great value in the organization. So highly recommend that you engage in, you know, kind of these types of searches. And then leverage this over to a LinkedIn or something like that and begin to follow, because this is much of this data is what is publicly reported, and there may be a lag with some of it. So you might not necessarily have all of the most current information. And most companies right now are really savvy with their social media feeds. So make sure that you're checking in there also to make sure you have the most current information.
No, those are great points, Cindy. And I do also want to mention, when we did the advanced search, we did focus sort of on the United States. We can actually expand this also to include both Canadian and other international companies as well. And there is an option here. So by default, it's only going to give us companies that are considered active. So any company that's inactive or no longer in business is, in theory, rooted out of here. But again, this is all the data that's coming from Dun & Bradstreet. So there's occasionally some lag time. But so that's one function. And again, you can create really fantastic reports by downloading your results. You can pick additional columns of information that are visible in those company profiles. And again, I just want to highlight in this upper right-hand corner, there are help guides and videos that you can watch to actually get some help when you're using these. So if it's like in the moment and you don't want to wait for a response from me, you're definitely able to kind of get some help on demand about the basic functionality in the platform. So I'm going to go back to the home page or the landing page. So we did sort of the basic search. We looked at the advanced search. The other thing I'm actually going to take a look at here is called First Research. So these are actually industry reports that were written sort of from like a broader business perspective. You just need to enter in an email address. It does not need to be a Yale address. It's just any email address. So it proves that it's an actual my Gmail. I was thinking any email address. Logged in before, but I think there was it logged me out a little bit. So, okay, this is what this is going to look like. And the other thing too is when you download multiple reports, it will just send you an email with these. That's why it also asks for the email address. But so this is First Research, again, also a product from D&B. And what this will do is provide you with these fantastic sort of overview reports that include all sorts of great information about, key statistics, forecasts, industry performance, etc. And you'll see up here in the upper right-hand corner, it's really broad. It will cover a variety under this most recent updates, everything from architectural and engineering services to bed and breakfast inns were recently updated in this platform. So depending on what you're looking for, this can be really helpful. I think in a lot of ways, I recommend students that are some of the MBA students and other job seeking students at SOM to look at some of these, especially if they're maybe pursuing roles that are functional in nature, but like not having a lot of deep industry experience. So something like, in corporate finance or something, and suddenly you're used to working in a pharma firm and now you're looking at consumer goods and, interviewing with a place that makes breakfast cereal. Like this is where you would go to kind of learn a lot quickly about one of these, a company that's operating in this space. So in this case, we can do a couple things. This is the most recent updates here. You can actually go through and browse industry profiles by sort of these different sectors here that we have. So we can take a look at any of these. If we look at like technology and communications, you can kind of see some of the options that are listed here. Let's take a look at something like education and training software. This is having a bit of a moment right now. And so I've clicked that. It is taking a moment to load. And this is what the landing page of that industry overview is going to look like. You have a couple of options here for how you might want to do this. So you can browse through the report by looking section by section. So they're going to talk about things like industry growth rating, industry indicators, drivers, etc., forecasts. And these are all updated quarterly in this particular database. The reports do get updated quite frequently. So what we're doing right now is just kind of looking at the HTML version. You can navigate through the different sections using these links over here on the left side of the page. So they'll have critical issues. One thing that's really helpful too, also maybe helpful for like informational interviewing or just sort of like impromptu networking conversations, is they actually have call prep questions. So remembering DMB really focuses as a company on sales. So these are like great company or questions that you might be asked, you might want to know the answers to, or that you might want to think about before you engage in a conversation with somebody at this company in this industry, if you're not super familiar with it. So it's really a great way to get smart very quickly. Again, this HTML view is a little clunky. What we can do though is we can actually select this as a PDF version. You can pick specific chapters you would want to download, or you can just download the whole thing. If you click on this, it will take a moment, but it will assemble a PDF document for you, and then you just have all of this information at your disposal. So I find these to be so helpful if you are really, like I said, trying to get smart quickly about what's happening in an industry that you might not be deeply entrenched in. Any comments, Cindy?
I'm thinking about this for a few alums that I know are thinking about changing industries, and where you can get really clear about like maybe who the suppliers are that support your industry and who else do they support. And then you can actually dive in and understand a little bit more about those other industries, and you can leverage that and transport that knowledge and information you have about one to another through stories. And people hear me talking about this all the time that are resonant to the industry or the employer that you're interested in joining. Too often people are talking about what they've done in the terms of where they were, and that's not always relevant. So this is really helpful information to help people clarify their story in terms that are going to be memorable and exciting to the people that you might be speaking to, either informationally or in a real interview. So this is fabulous stuff. Thank you so much, Erin, for going through this with us step by step.
Yeah, these are often a favorite, especially for anyone that is either considering a new career path, or again, even in your current role, if you're thinking about a sales opportunity or acquisition, some of this can really help you think about what the priorities of the company are. So, okay, that was just the first research. We just looked at one profile. There are several others in here. And again, we also have access to the archived profile. So if you want to just kind of look at these and how maybe this particular industry has changed over time, that is also at your disposal in the first research industry reports available through Mergent Intellect. There are other options available through here, but we're not going to look at those today because I wanted to take a few minutes to think about how you might be able to go even deeper. So we've gotten some deep industry insights. There was some good company information available in Mergent Intellect, but we had mentioned, going back to the alumni portal, that we have another product called Mergent Online. And I think we're kind of going from, I don't want to call it superficial because it doesn't seem like it has the appropriate weight to it, but I think you're getting increasingly deeper as you kind of navigate through the three products that we're looking at today. Mergent Online is yet another database from Mergent. It provides a lot deeper and in-depth information on US and international companies. Similar to Intellect, you'll see that the username and password are listed right there. And I also wanted to mention too, we do include those shortcut links to the help guides too. So if you are using this at times that I'm not available to answer your question, or Cindy can't answer any questions, this will at least maybe help you navigate the platform itself. So we're going to click into Mergent Online. And so again, you'll start to see a trend here. There's lots of tab navigation in their products. And this is the main basic search screen. So what we're going to do is take a look again at a company profile. Some options we have here, you can look at US companies or international companies. And you can select or deselect these. So this by default is including active and inactive. What I'll say about that was not the default in Mergent Intellect. It is the default in this platform. And I think that the main differentiator is this tends to be more, include a lot more financial information. So I think the end user might be a little different, and that's why inactive companies might want, there's an interest in that from a financial perspective, especially again, if you're thinking about this from like a mergers and acquisitions point of view or something else. So let's go ahead and just enter a company name here in the search box. We're going to do Pfizer again. And you can search either by company name or their stock symbol. So if you are familiar with that for a company, you could just drop that into the search box as well. So this is also another company profile. A lot of the information might appear a little redundant. Some notable differences of things that are not in Mergent Intellect but are in this platform would be things like stock prices. You're going to find more market information in here, and we're going to have much deeper financials. So coming from, their corporate filings listed in here. You're going to also find more news that is a little bit more up to date. So this is just something from a few moments ago that mentioned Pfizer. And we also have some recent corporate events listed in here too. So tab navigation, you'll see where the company details, and that there are sort of like sub navigations here. So you can do things like, again, look at things like the business, their properties, their subsidiaries. In here, we also have information about debt. Again, much more market focused. If there's one takeaway in here, I think that would be it. Other things we can do, again, those executive profiles are listed in here. You can find things like equity pricing, direct links to previous annual reports. You can download more news. One thing that is also of interest in here that I think you might find helpful would be the competitors list. So again, if you're trying to think about how to maybe expand a universe, if you are trying to identify other companies that could be of interest, this is one way. Easily exportable. Again, it's going to be sort of very similar in terms of your list composition to what you might have included in Mergent Intellect, but you'll be able to have, I think, some additional fields of information that may or may not be important to you. Something else that is also really interesting in this platform is there's actually a supply chain link. So this is where you can actually get in and start looking at perhaps maybe some of the different products and services of a particular sector. We can look at Pfizer's different products and services. So here's a complete list of all of their products that you could go ahead and export. Again, there's that competitor list. We can also generate lists of customers and suppliers, and this is always interesting. So we can take a look at suppliers here, so you can sort of understand those other business relationships that are at the company or that you may also have. And so right now we're looking at a list of all suppliers. These could be suppliers that were named or defined by Pfizer, or that another company has named Pfizer as their customer. So again, this is just another interesting way to start exploring links and other connections that you might have, or that could also be important for, how this particular company is functioning. And again, totally exportable, which is really, I think, a nice feature of this tool. So I'm going to actually go back, and again, just thinking, I'm not going to look at all of these different tabs here because there's a lot of deep information about companies in this platform. But if we go back to that home page, let's go back to search here. One other thing I wanted to mention, and this is also, I think, unique to this platform, we do get a lot of questions about, company strategy, how that might be helpful for conversations you might be having as part of your job search. This particular platform will also include access to a library of Analyst Research. So if you go into this Invest Text tab on the top of the page, this is going to let you create a search that will search for either equity research reports or other industry reports that could be, or company reports that could be of interest. So by default, it's going to pick the last 12 months. We could pick another time frame, and you can pick a custom range. you can go ahead and enter in the name of a company. So again, we could do Pfizer, and then you'll want to click submit, and it's going to show you the matches. So within the last 90 days, there were 427 reports. If you want to see those reports, we can click view. And these are going to come from a variety of different providers. So some of these are going to come actually from banks. Others are going to come from research firms that do sort of company intelligence. And you can kind of get a sense by looking at the pages here, the number of pages or the page count, like how in-depth the report will be. So in some cases, if it's from a bank, you're going to kind of get sort of that standard buy, sell, hold equity research report. But other reports that will be listed in here will be a little bit more in-depth. And in some cases, if we kind of go through, and I think because I made this 90 days and not a longer horizon of time, you'll even find some from publishers like Global Data or MarketLine that will like include a SWOT analysis about a company. So that will help you really start to think about the strategic direction of a particular company. And to open any of these, all you would need to do is just click on this little PDF icon and you can download this. So this is not always widely available through a lot of sources, but we do have access to these here through this. So here's one, the financial and strategic SWOT analysis from Global Data on Pfizer. Yeah, that's insanely huge, probably because it covers a lot of their different products. I wouldn't recommend trying to print that, but there might be some helpful information in there. So yeah, this is really when you want to go deep into information about a company, how they're performing, how the market might be thinking about the company. Yeah, so that was sort of my final piece de la resistance in terms of types of content you would find in Mergent Online. I have a question here back about first research that I will address in just a moment, but does anybody have any questions or Cindy comments about this last piece we're looking at for Mergent Online?
I just love this from the perspective of really asking smart questions about the company's strategy and maybe about how the role or the function that you're going to be inquiring about fits into that strategy. And you also might be able to look at, kind of what some other competitors are doing. I joke that I'm a recovered accountant. I love being able to find information on leverage and debt in an organization, because some companies might look really wonderful on a cash flow or on a cash basis standpoint relative to others that might be more highly leveraged. And that certainly impacts their ability to continue as a going concern from a perspective of a physical plan if they're not reinvesting in the company. So there's some really interesting questions you can see in the story of the numbers if you spend some time there. And there's some really interesting questions you can see in following what some of the analysts speak about. And this would be another way. A couple of months ago, I talked about game-changing job search resources, understanding who's covering the industries you're interested in and following those for your company and competitors. Super helpful. And any research, just to remind you, any research you do on one company, if you're interested in the industry and you don't get that job in that company, that's all portable to the next one and really demonstrates your commitment to the industry and growing and the value you'd bring as a member of their team in the competitive company. So again, love this. I'm geeking out on the information as well, Erin. So thank you for sharing this. And I think you're going to go back and peek at, again, how do we get to these tools? The one thing I'd ask folks to do is try to dig into some of these tools before reaching out and asking another question. And again, remember that there are those opportunities to take in those training materials. And I've looked at a couple of them. They're short videos and they're pretty self-explanatory and you can follow right along. So before you go and reach to Erin, of course, she's delighted to hear from you. Please try to figure some of this stuff out yourself. And then you can go and ask her the really amazing questions that are going to make a difference in differentiating you from other clients, other candidates, if you will. So.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I wanted to point out too, I neglected to mention, was you can limit this to broker research. That would be those banks or investment brokers or those independent research firms. So there's lots of different ways you can sort of narrow your results. You won't really be able to see what's in the report until you download it, but you can download away in here, which is the great thing. Again, and I only covered just a couple pieces of information in here. Mergent Online has a lot of functionality. So yeah, I 100% concur with Cindy's recommendation to just kind of get in there and explore if you are curious in that way. So I did have a question here about something related to the First Research landing page. So First Research is available through Mergent Intellect. So again, we're on that page and you'll see here, it's under that advanced search option. So there's a couple other things in Mergent Intellect that I also did not cover because there's just so much. But First Research will be listed there under Mergent Intellect. And that's how you can get to those. Let's see. Quick access guide that provides an overview of all of the tools. So there is a handout that will be sent to the attendees very shortly that you will be able to see, that will actually have like a listing of these three, what some of the better use cases are, what makes them more unique than some of the, in comparison to the other resources that we've looked at. And again, these were all accessible through the career resources page in the alumni portal. The other thing too that the handout does include that I think I'll make note of, and again, these are just the resources that Yale has been able to negotiate alumni access for. Obviously, some of you might remember having access to things as a student that you don't have now. And I always like to say that's not us, that's the publisher. We are able to provide these to current students and faculty at Yale under an academic license. Some of the vendors, because these are used in industry, Mergent is actually was acquired a couple of years ago by the London Stock Exchange, who also owns like Refinitiv and formerly Thomson Reuters. It's a whole thing. But the bottom line is they have very strict terms for like academic use and non-academic use. And unfortunately, as alumni, you fall into that non-academic use. So whenever we can negotiate for alumni access, we can. But with that said, there are several libraries, and again, this will be listed on the handout that will be sent to you. There are several public libraries that have incredible collections of resources. Yep, and business.reference@yale.edu is the email to meet me or to contact me at. I see some people are signing off. I just wanted to confirm that that's a yes. But something like New York Public Library has an incredible business library. They have Bloomberg terminals, access to Capital IQ, market research, consumer research. Don't sell your public library short. And so we've put together a list of public libraries that have impressive business research sources that can expand what you can do if you're not finding these that we showcase today to be entirely doing the job for you.
Let me pop in here with a quick PSA. Kayla has just put into the chat a request for feedback. So some of you have said this is amazing. Some of you might have some suggestions about how we could make this better or further follow on, types of programming that we might do in the future. Please take a moment, if you don't mind, to fill out that Qualtrics survey. Grab that survey form and give us some feedback about how you found our session today. Erin, I love this idea of the not selling the local library short. I know my public library in Westport, Connecticut has a tremendous amount of programming, and they're also, we've just had a major reconstruction of our library, and we're looking at it not as, kind of a repository of books as libraries were once known, but rather a community center where things are happening, and there's, not just access to local business information, but also rich cultural information, and also, conversations like we would expect to have at Yale as well, around what's going on in the world, business and society, and generally. So were there any other libraries, local library kind of highlights you wanted to put out there about what to look for, or how to access them, or what to ask when you reach out to your library?
Most will usually have somebody, a business library. And I feel like in the library world, if anybody in the group has any librarians in their lives, you can confirm this with them. Most librarians are afraid of business information unless they're a business library. So there's almost always a business information specialist at every library who knows how to search these kinds of tools. So I think really just being clear about the kinds of information that you are seeking, having some good questions, having, like, again, thinking about this from a research perspective, having a research question in mind, and then working with that librarian to figure out how to break it down and find answers using the resources that they have at their disposal. And so again, that handout that will be going out actually has links to some of the actual business departments within a number of libraries in Connecticut, as well as in larger metropolitan areas, depending on where you are joining us today from. So that, again, super helpful. And again, I think librarians are usually, like, we're at least business librarians, like, we're always happy to help. So.
And just a reminder for everybody who's on this call that is an alum of the Yale School of Management, you are an alum of an undergraduate institution as well. And those institutions may also have not only career resources, but also amazing business resources available. And I'll tell you, as an alum of Penn State, I had a visit a few years ago from the library, from a representative of the library, not a development call, but one to say, here's what's happened since you graduated, and here's what we have available to you that you might not be aware of. So I encourage you to check that out as well for your undergraduate institutions, because there's some top-notch information out there from a variety of sources, and they're all at your fingertips if you reach out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely second that.
Anything else? And you've been at other academic institutions as well, Erin. So I know that you know that there's some great people out there doing some phenomenal things. I'm not seeing any other questions right now. Is there anything else you want to share in closing, Erin? Other than, and I just want to say again, thanks to everybody for attending. Thank you for filling out the Qualtrics survey. Keep an eye out for events in the future, and this and all the rest of the recorded webinars are here on the career page. Erin, anything you want to share in closing?
No, just thank you for being such a great audience and being so enthusiastic and open to hearing about some of these tools that we have. It's always great to see people be excited about this. And again, we're happy to help here. If you are in the Connecticut area, unfortunately, we're not open to alumni just yet, but I've heard that might be coming soon. I'm hoping we just round this last corner and we'll be able to open things up again. But you're definitely welcome to reach out to me if you have questions, or even if it's something that we don't have access to through Alumni Access, I can try to help you get what you need through some other suggestions. So yeah, we love hearing from you always. So please do not hesitate to reach out.
And fabulous. And thank you so much for sharing. You went through a rigorous master's program also to become a library scientist, and your rigor with going through this information for the benefit of our students and our alumni really does make a difference. So thank you for all that you've contributed, and all that you will contribute all that you will continue to contribute, Erin. And Kayla, thanks for making all this happen.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I see one new message. Wish I knew all about this as a student.
That is a question I get all the time. There's no shame in that, it's fine.
I'm glad that you know about it now.
Exactly, that's the important part.
Absolutely. And share this with your friends in the future. It's helpful to other people as well. So if you didn't know about it, others might not as well. Thank you everybody for being here again. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Kayla Hayslip, and the rest of our team on the Alumni Relations team for making these happen. And we'll see you next month with another career webinar.
Thank you.